Okay, right now the world is talking about World War III. And it appears that the West really wants a war with Russia. And many people, NATO has violated all kinds of promises that it made to Russia as it has moved eastward, and has basically been poking the bear. The United States encouraged a revolution in Ukraine. I believe it was during the Obama regime. And overthrew the government, and you now have the governing elite, the governing regime in Ukraine right now under Zelensky. And of course, we're being told that we want to help to protect democracy in Ukraine, but now Zelensky has become really de facto a dictator, calling off elections, and so it's not about democracy. There's something bigger going on here. Initially, this conflict between Ukraine and Russia could have been negotiated. Yes, Ukraine would have had to give up some territory, but hundreds of thousands of people could have been saved. Death and all of the destruction and mayhem could have been alleviated over the past, I guess it's going on 2 years now, with the war between those two countries. So there's a bigger thing going on here. It's also more than just feeding the military-industrial complex of the West, specifically the U.S. We know that's a big factor. We also know that Biden and his family have been bought and paid off by Ukraine, among other countries. And so perhaps he owes them. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff. These are all, as I see it, all things on the surface that are not really the real issues that are going on. This is what we are being told, and these are some of the shadows on the wall of the cave that I think it was Plato talked about. Maybe it was Aristotle, I don't remember. I think it was Plato. We're seeing the movements on the shadows on the cave, but we're not seeing the hands that are making the shadows. And so there is Western Europe seems to be, NATO is expanding, including now some of the Nordic countries, I guess Finland and Sweden, or at least one of them, whichever one, maybe both of them, and all those countries are kind of, as I'm reading the reports, are preparing for war, preparing their people, and kind of bending the narratives in that direction a little bit to prepare their people for that possibility. It's very alarming. And of course, in the United States, again, I'm looking at all the surface stuff. The United States is looking at, the Biden regime is in trouble. And there's a very good possibility that he will not be reelected because of his age and his senility. And yet there's so much hatred for President Trump and the other side, the left, as we all can see, and what happened just this week with his being convicted on all 34 counts of stuff that is very, very ridiculous, and yet he's a quote-unquote convicted felon because of some potential campaign finance issues and so forth and so on. And so there's even then a very real possibility that he could be elected president, and that sends shudders on the side of the left. Not that Donald Trump is a saint. We all know he is not, but he definitely seems to be at odds against the quote-unquote deep state, and the deep state has its plans, its agendas that it wants to accomplish, basically moving us toward what we see as the Novus Ordo Seclorum, or the New World Order. And that's what the Bible refers to as Mystery Babylon or Babylon the Great. And so Babylon the Great is, now I'm tagging a bunch of bases here, so please, I hope we don't get lost here in the weeds, but I will pull it all together as I usually am somewhat successful at hopefully doing. But Babylon the Great is a world ruling order. It's not just one nation. Some people say that U.S. is Babylon the Great. I don't agree with that. I think the U.S. may be the leader of Babylon the Great. And there's Babylon the Great, and then there's Babylon. We do know that the book of Revelation talks about Babylon will fall in one day. That could refer to a nation and also could refer to the whole global system. We know that Babylon the Great as a global system will, and talks about all nations and all tongues, all people, all the kings of the earth have fornicated with Babylon. Is that referring to the United States? Possibly. But the system itself is worldwide. It's economic, political, and religious in nature. When I say religious, I'm thinking of Luciferian, satanic, and any of the false Christian or other religions, Islam, whatever, that have joined in with it to one degree or another. Eventually, the religious part, the woman will be kicked off, and it will just be a religious and a political system, but it will still be energized by Satan, the devil, because he doesn't have use for especially Christianity or even any versions of it. This is all in the book of Revelation. We won't tag those bases and go to those verses. But it is a global system, and it's a global system that is not going to be destroyed by nuclear war. If nuclear war, even though President Putin and Medvedev and those guys in Russia are threatening nuclear war, there may be some localized nuclear strikes, tactical nukes, and we possibly can see some allusions to that in some of the prophecies in the Bible. We won't go there, but those of you that are knowledgeable about prophecy, in Zechariah, the melting in the eyes, in their sockets, and that could be an illusion. And there's also a possibility of in the book of Hosea that talks about that. It could be a nuclear strike, but it's not going to be a nuclear war that destroys the whole world. And I agree with Brother Dave and some of the others on our Zoom meeting. We just had a little discussion previous to this video about this. And the powers that be, the global oligarchs, the elites, the bankers, the financial interests, do not want to destroy the infrastructure that they have spent trillions of dollars building, whether it's satellites, 5G, 6G, whatever the other Gs are that are coming along, all the other infrastructures to keep their globalistic machine going. Remember what it says in Revelation 18, the merchants are the great men of the earth. And by their sorceries, they have basically enslaved, or by their pharmakia, so they have built up these industries and these multinational oligarchic structures. And what we see is we're not moving toward global communism. I've said this many times. We're moving toward global fascism. That's what we see in the book of Revelation. A global fascism. There's a difference between fascism and communism. Communism is the government. The government controls all the means of production and distribution of goods. That's what we saw in the old Soviet Union. Fascism is the government, the political system is in bed with the major corporations. That's what we saw in fascist Germany and Italy during World War II and previous to that. That's what we see rising up in China. China is, as I see it, is the prototype for what the global elites, quote unquote, they're not elites, they're scumbags. They're demonic, satanic scumbags. So I don't like to use the term elites, but you all know what I'm talking about. But that's what we see in China. And this is what Klaus Schwab has praised, the founder and president. He's now getting ready to retire, but of the World Economic Forum from Davos, Switzerland. That's the system that he is praising. You will own nothing and you will love it. The government will take care of you. This is exactly what Larry Fink, the head of BlackRock, which is the largest investment, whatever, I forget the exact term, but they're worth somewhere around, I think, $15 trillion. You got BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, and there's a fourth one that I just came across my radar screen. These are the big companies. If you go back and look at the who controls the stock in almost all the major large companies, it is these 3 or 4. They're the major owners, and so they in other words, they're investment firms, and they control the controlling stock of almost all the large corporations worldwide, and so they're able to press their DEI. And I've heard Larry Fink say that. I've heard it in his own voice several times. We are going to impose diversity, equity, and inclusion, and all this woke stuff and this globalistic stuff into these corporations, and we will force it, and we are going to remake humanity along these lines. And it's all satanic, all antichrist type stuff, and everything's about death. Everything in the entire world that they are trying to push is about death. Almost everything the U.S. government is pushing, it's a spirit of death. And no wonder, because Satan is the god of this world. He comes to kill, steal, and destroy, and he wants to destroy everything, especially humans. It's about depopulation. He wants to destroy humans because they are the potential sons and daughters of Elohim that will be adopted into his family and will take his place while he's burning in the bottomless pit, bottomless pit and then the lake of fire for eternity. So he wants to get rid of the competition. And how is he doing that? You name it. Homosexuality, GMOs, attack on the marriage, attack on the family, attack on male and female, the chemicals in your food, geoengineering, transhumanism, biometrics, digital currencies, abridgment of civil liberties, pandemics, pharmaceuticals, gender dysphoria and bodily mutilation, and people, changing genders. I mean, it goes on and on. Abortion. I mean, we could list 20 or 30 or 40 different things. Wars, famines, global climate change. I believe that climate change, to one degree or another, some of it is naturally occurring. It's been occurring for thousands of years on this earth, but some of it, I believe, is being precipitated through geoengineering as they're spraying barium and aluminum medical particles and everything else in the sky. We can see it. I'm looking out the window yesterday, and I'm seeing these planes going around and making U-turns and doing all kinds of weird things, spraying out stuff over the blue skies. I've seen it in many, many places, and it's been well documented now that this stuff is falling down. Many chemical analysis has been made. It's affecting what we breathe. It's affecting how the plants, it's plugging up the lenticels on the trees so they can't breathe and they're dying, and on and on and on it goes. All this to try to reflect heat away from the earth. I mean, we could go on and on, all about kill, steal, and destroy. And open borders, that again about kill, steal, and destroy. Let everybody come in, bring the criminals from Haiti and from Venezuela, and their crime rates go down. Our crime rates go up. Fentanyl, the drug, Soros, everything he's pushing, letting the criminals loose, defunding the police, racial tensions, division and strife that is being fomented, defunding the police. It's all about kill, steal, and destroy. So anyway, all that to say this, this is about bringing the world through chaos, out of order. Out of chaos comes order. That's the Hegelian dialectic. You have synthesis. I mean, you have thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. So you have the ruling order, or the order over here, the world order, whatever it may be, as it was, and then you have the antithesis, the opposing force, And these two collide and clash. And then out of the chaos of that comes the desired result by the people behind the scenes that are orchestrating everything. So this gets back to a book that I read when I was a teenager. My father gave it to me to read, a book by Gary Allen called None Dare Call It Conspiracy. Now, this we began to see shadows of this in George Orwell's book 1984 that was published in 1948. Well, 1984 came and went, and a lot of those things hadn't come to pass. But this is what George Orwell, the futurist, and you can also go back to other futurists, Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, and you can read that and you can see some of that. But I think the Brave New World, 1984, if you've ever read that book or seen the movie, but in that book you had three global powers that were constantly at war with each other, and they were like, one would be kind of on the top, then another one, and they would all be fighting, and everything through conflict, people were kept under control, and there was a certain stasis that occurred on the earth. Well, the book None Dare Call It Conspiracy that I read, it was the first thing I read, anything like that, about what was going on behind the scenes. And I don't remember all the details of that book. The takeaway was this, that I believe, and I think this can be well documented, that the communist revolution the Bolshevik revolution, was funded by the Western bankers. Lenin had fled to Switzerland to escape the persecutions of Tsar Nicholas II, and he was living in Switzerland, and he was a rabble rouser, trying to bring in communism. And then he was put on the gold train with a whole bunch of gold. And this train, you can read, look up the gold train. It's in Wikipedia. And he and his rabble rousers were given clearance to go through Europe and brought into Soviet Union or Russia under the nose of the Tsar, and from that the money was funded. The money was given by whoever, probably the Western bankers, Rothschilds or whoever, to fund the communist revolution. Now this goes back. The first major revolution was the French Revolution, 1789. I've studied that extensively, and that was brought on by the Bavarian Illuminati, Adam Weishaupt, who founded that in 1776. It was ruled illegal. It went underground, went into the Freemasonry movement, and the Freemasons were largely the fomenters of the French Revolution. So this was the purpose of that was to obliterate the monarchy in France. And then from there we had Napoleon, who went around trying to obliterate the Habsburg dynasty and so forth, and he was largely successful in that to one degree or another, and then he got off course, and that's the Napoleonic dynasties. That's a whole nother. France has been in chaos ever since to one degree or another. And then you had World War I that happened, and I'll get back to Gary Allen in a minute. You had World War I that happened, and that eliminated that weakened the British Empire, but didn't eliminate it. But World War I was instrumental, and I believe it was brought on purposely by the powers that be. It eliminated the Ottoman Empire, the German Empire, and the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and the Russian Empire. Brought all four of those down. It weakened the British Empire, and then in about another 20 years, a little over 20 years, then World War II happened, and that destroyed what was left of the British Empire. And then shortly thereafter, Britain lost all of its overseas territories and became a second-rate nation, and now it's not much of anything. So back to, this was all, and of course then you had the League of Nations in World War I, and that was a failure, but that was a test run. And then you had, out of the aftermath of World War II, you had the United Nations, and that was the first thing that kind of brought it all together. And that the land for the United Nations was donated by the Rockefellers, who have been major promoters of this New World Order thing. And the land was donated, and they're on the Hudson River, and in New York City, and we could go on and on about that. And it's largely been ineffective, but it has been politically or propagandistically effective, and basically it has opposed anything that the United States, Israel, or the Western traditional nations stand for, and it's been promoting this middle ground between socialism, communism / socialism. Remember, socialism, according to Marx, is the step toward communism, and you have Fabian socialism, which is bringing in Marxism gradually through socialistic reforms in nations. And then you have that's socialism or communism by the ballot box, as you have socialism or communism by the bullet box. So there in the Chinese, Russian, Cuban, all the other revolutions, those were done quickly through the bullet. And that's, again, there's different ways to bring in socialism, but we are not moving toward global communism. We are moving toward global fascism, because that's what we see in the book of Revelation. Basically, it's a term that I've been calling globalistic feudalism. So we're moving into an age of feudalism, but neo-feudalism. Remember, feudalism was where the ruling elites controlled the land, and the peasants worked on the land. This is in Europe and probably other countries too, maybe China, and I don't know, and even to a certain degree in Tsarist Russia and other places. But the ruling elites, or the monarchy or whoever, could own the land, and you worked the land, and you were given just enough food to subsist. And that's exactly where they're moving us toward, the mark of the beast and all of that. So to get us to that point, so basically that's why I say the governments and the ruling elite, the big oligarchic countries, companies are in bed together, and it's what you saw in Italy and Germany. This was a test ground for it, and it was very successful. Look at Germany's success in World War II. It took all these nations to defeat it, and also Japan. Japan was fascistic under Tojo. So anyway, and it was a very powerful system, and the people were basically kind of somewhat slaves in their own countries, and they were fueling this economic machine. And this is what we see in China. China has moved away from ultra-communism, has moved more to oligarchic capitalism, but still with heavily socialistic and somewhat communistic. And that is the model that people like Larry Fink and Klaus Schwab, and even Elon Musk, you don't hear him. He's making all these cars over there and batteries and so forth, and he's not. He's making money hand over fist, and he's bowing to them, and he's not criticizing them, and we could go on and on with many other countries. So back to Gary Allen and none-dare-call-it conspiracy. I'm going to try to tie this all together here. We're not going to have a global, nuclear war. It would be mutually assured destruction. If they began to fire at us, we would begin to fire at them, and nobody wants that. And that's what our whole defense system is built still on MAD, or mutually assured destruction. And there's a whole series of protocols and things that if certain things happen, other things are going to happen. It's going to be crazy. I don't think we're ever going to come to that. I don't see that in the Bible. I don't see the global elites destroying everything, but it could be very difficult in the meantime, and that's why we've got to be pressed into Yeshua. So back to Gary Allen. What I saw in that book, and my takeaway was the yin and the yang. Imagine a teeter-totter. Imagine here's my finger, and this is a teeter-totter, and this pencil, I can't get it to balance, but imagine this is a teeter-totter, and it's balancing. If I find the exact spot where it will balance on my finger like that, okay? And if you're in the middle, let's say this teeter-totter weighed a gazillion tons, okay? If you put a 1 ounce weight on this side or a 1 ounce weight on that side, you're in a position in the middle where you can control, you're at the fulcrum. You can control it one way or the other. And it's like, you don't need to be very many people. You just need to have a lot of power, a lot of money, and a lot of political power to be able to control one or the other. And that's, and you could say one side is east and one side is west. China, Russia, North Korea, whatever other country, BRICS nations, I don't care, whatever. And the rest could be, Western Europe, NATO, I don't know, Israel, whatever. And if you're in the middle, you can control one or the other. And that's exactly what Gary Allen said. He said, they are merging capitalism, and I read this almost 50 years ago, merging capitalism and communism, and there's going to be a synthesis in the middle. He didn't use the term global fascism, but that's what I see in the book of Revelation. And that's what we're moving toward, where they can control everything, digital currencies, control where people go, what they don't do. And we saw a test run of that during the COVID pandemic, where they were getting people acclimated to being controlled, where they could go, where they couldn't go. Some countries were toying around with a COVID passport. Some actually had, France was bordering on that. Russia, Australia, New Zealand, Austria, and a few other countries. Canada was toying around with some of those things. We didn't quite get there in America. We still have too many guns here. But, people were acquiescing to it because of fear. A lot of people will do a lot of things because of fear. So anyway, and the government, these social engineers know that. They can propagandize people, put them under fear, and then they will do whatever, especially if they can brainwash the kids to believe that the government is right and the government is God, basically, and you do everything it says and you'll be rewarded. Social credit scores, it all goes in there. So it all, controlling, social engineering people to move people in a, one way or the other, and to remake society along globalistic lines. So this is what I see going on, and I see East versus West, and they're going to use that to put fear on the people, control the people, and move people in a certain direction that. So, you look at the book of Revelation, and it's not a perfect system. Daniel described it as a clay in the 10 toes of the image that he saw, that man, that vision that he saw was clay, and it was iron and clay. What I see that as representing is the human clay and the machine. That would be AI, robotics, transhumanism, these various chimeras and things where they're melding different things together. And that's the Neuralink that Elon Musk is involved in. Altman, forget his first name, Sam Altman, he's now a billionaire, another brilliant Jewish fellow who's moving in that direction. I forget the name of his company, but you've got people like this that are just hell-bent to move us in this direction for the greater good of everybody and their personal enrichment. Of course, don't forget that. And that's really more what it's about for most of these guys. And so that's what I see going on, and we are moving irrevocably in that direction, and it's what I see is what the book of Revelation is. So these guys will be in the middle, and they're going to be controlling, trying to control under the control of Satan, who's out to kill, steal, and destroy, and ultimately it's about the destruction of the human race. But these guys are the useful idiots the devil is using for the convenience and for the security and for the peacefulness and for the longevity, and to try to create immortality for humans, and offer all of these promises of what all this technology will offer you. But remember, the devil always over promises and under delivers. Everything that he comes up with is ultimately, no matter what it is, it's about death. And we can go back to the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Oh, you shall live forever. You shall be like God. Oh, this, and this. And he didn't tell you the other side of the story, that the wages of sin is death, and you're going to be separated from Elohim, and it's going to be hell on earth. He left that part of the story out, and that's what humans have been dealing with ever since. And he wants to recreate this whole thing all over again, and that's his kingdom that he's going to rise up to try to thwart the plans and purposes of Yehovah Elohim, and that's what Yeshua is going to destroy. Babylon the Great when he comes back, and that's when the captives will be set free, and that's when there'll be many people that will be killed. But in the meantime, it's going to be clay and iron. It's not going to mix very well. And there's going to be elements fighting each other, and it's going to look like that the Russians or the Chinese or whoever are against these guys. And that's what it looks like on the surface. But behind the scenes, the enemy, Satan, is orchestrating things and balancing things out, the yin and the yang, the plus and the minus, one side fighting the other, and tipping the balances, where the guys at the very top under Satan know what's going on, and they're using their power, their money, their finances, everything to control all of this. That's what I see, and that's why I don't get overly worked up by all the things that I see going on all around us at the lower level. Like, what is the WHO doing, or what is what is Biden doing, or Obama, or Trump, or the world, Klaus Schwab, or what is Putin saying, or the president of Iran, or Hamas, or yes, these things are affecting us, but and there are things, but that's not the big picture. All right. That's how I see it after evaluating these things for a better part of 50 years, standing on the shoulders of my father and my grandfather, who was born in 1911, was also very, very aware of these things. And I've learned from them, learned by my own reading, and they were all Bible students. And that's what I see when I put it all together. Right or wrong, I guess we'll find out when all is said and done. But I have not seen anything in the last better part of 50 years to dissuade me from that basic premise which I have just laid out. Agree or disagree, I challenge anybody to examine everything that at least I have looked at to prove me wrong. There may be some minor details that we don't know, a lot of minor details we don't know, but that's the big picture of what I see going on. And you know what? Am I overly worried about it? No, because we do what we can, we watch and we pray, but ultimately our faith is in Yeshua, and we are more than conquerors, because ultimately he has the final word, and that's the wall that I'm leaning my ladder up against. That's the foundation that my rock is built on, or my house that is built on, and there ain't nothing I can do about any of this other stuff. I'm aware of it, and yes, I can have my guns, my gold, my grub, and have my, this, that, and the next thing. But none of us know how this is all going to shake out. We do the best we can to prepare. I'm an old Boy Scout. Be prepared. I'm an Eagle Scout. That was the motto. But beyond that, am I all torqued out about it, all wigged out about it? Am I all, walking in fear? No. Sometimes I do, and I have to catch myself and say, take a deep breath, Nathan. Yah is on his throne. Get your eyes back on Yeshua, and then my heart rate calms down, and my blood pressure, and all of that, and I have the joy of the Lord comes back. But I'm not going to let that fear come upon me. And I will leave you with this: for Elohim has not given us a spirit of fear, but of dunamis power, love, agape love, and a sound, reasonable, well-thinking mind that's instructed and informed by the Holy Spirit and by the Word and by our relationship with Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen. Hallelujah. Extemporaneous talk that I wasn't planning to give, but here we are. And I hope this encouraged and blessed someone. The outlook may be really crummy, but the uplook is always great. So keep your faith strong in Yeshua the Messiah. Amen.